Hi, this is Eric Martin with BoardGameGeek. I'm here with Jennifer from Amigo. And Amigo has a very regular sort of production schedule, lots of titles coming out. This is Amigo's 40th anniversary, so it's kind of a big deal. It's too bad we can't share cake with you in Germany, in essence, Jennifer.
Yes.
But it's nice to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Amigo, as I said, usually has lots of small card games, right? You got Excalibur, you got Llama, there's all sorts of things like that. But today we are looking at something bigger. The past couple of years, you usually have like one bigger box game that has not just cards, has more stuff in it. So today we are looking at Monster Expedition by Alexander Pfister. So I hope you can give an overview of what we're trying to do in the game and how it works.
Yes, I'm very happy to do that. So we're back in the world of Carnival of Monsters. I think all of us a bit fell in love with the whole world and the whole game. So this time we're back. We are living in different camps that we have at the bottom of the game, you see there. So everybody's starting with the lowest expansion of the camp. So you're allowed to roll dice. And with the number of dice that you've rolled, or the number that you rolled, you are allowed to buy monsters or cages. So just go. The game is played in 4 phases for each player's round. So at the beginning of it, you're deciding what camp you will use for your monster hunt. So you have the deep sea, you have the cloudlands, and you have the enchanted forest. So depending on what world...
The landscape correspond to monsters, so you need a particular camp to decide who you're actually trying to catch, I guess, or where you're hunting.
Exactly. So you're only allowed to catch the monsters from that land that you chose at the beginning of your round. So if you, for example, choose the Cloudlands in the beginning, you're allowed to use 1 black dice and the yellow dice. Going through the game, you're allowed to expand your camp. So that means that the further you get, the more dice you'll have to roll in your round. So once you decided on which camp you use, you go on the monster hunt. That means you start rolling the dice. And once you roll the dice, you decide what numbers you want to put aside. So you're allowed to choose 1 number that you would like to put aside, but you have to take all the dice from that number. So if we're a bit further in the game and you have, for example, 4 black dice and the colored dice you roll, then you roll like 2 4s. You take both 4s out. So, for example, we have the 10 here, and the 10, for example, is pretty good. So we would probably use that because 3 and 1 are pretty low. So we would put the dice aside and roll with another 2 dice. Exactly. So now again, we can choose which one we want to take. So we choose probably the 3. And then we can either...
Sorry. I was going to say, what's the range of numbers on the black dice?
1 to 6.
1 to 6. Okay. Standard number.
Yeah. It's standard numbers. And on the colored ones, we have larger numbers going up to 10.
Okay.
So you roll the dice, and for example, we have those 3 numbers now. So we have 14, and now we can decide whether we want to buy a monster living in the Cloudlands, which has up to 14 costs on it. So we see the costs on the cards at the top right, that we can see what the monster costs. So this would be a 12. This would be perfect. We could buy this, or we could buy a cage. But probably we want to buy this one because we obviously want to have lots of monsters in our camp later on.
That's right.
So
That's kind of the name of the game.
Yeah.
Yes, we're not cage. It's not a cage expedition.
No, exactly. The cages would be if you would have a world of 14, but there are only higher numbers or higher monsters in the display, in the wilderness display, or you have rolled too many dice and you still have some, I would say, cash left, you can still get one of those cages, put it aside, and later in the game, those cages count as points as well.
Okay.
So then you can go on developing your camps. So for example, in the middle of your camps, you see numbers. And if one of those numbers is rolled within your part, so this would be a 1, and we had a 1, you are allowed to turn your camp and expand it. So now the next time we would, correct, to the 3 at the top, right? So the next time it would be our turn, we would be allowed to roll 3 black dice and the colored dice when we choose the Cloudlands. So the 4th season, or the 4th phase, yes?
So you had also some icons on the bottom of the monster. So what do those relate to? Or is that a special power for later, or now when you capture it? How does that work?
This, for example, would be a special skill for later. So you see the 4 different faces at the bottom, and you also see one of this yellow face at the top left of the card. So if we have 3 monsters who each have one of those faces, and we add them together, then we get another dice that we are allowed to roll in every part that we play.
Oh, all right. Okay.
So they have special skills. Some of them come up the moment you buy them. For example, you're allowed to get 1 cage from one of your opponents, or you are allowed, you also have miss roll dices, so you can, I'll come to that in a moment, but those skills help you protect your camp or protect your monster hunt. Okay. So this, for example, you would need 3 of the masks to get an additional dice.
Okay.
If you would have gotten a cage throughout your part, then the wilderness display would be filled up again, but only then. So if you buy a monster, it just be left that way. So the monsters, the hole will be left there. But if we would have bought a cage and there would be some monsters missing, then we would be allowed to fill up those monsters. The good thing with that is that in the beginning, everyone gets one of those blazons that you see piled up at the bottom, or at the, yes. So if we would buy, for example, if we would have gotten a cage now and there would be 1 monster missing, we would fill up that gap, put our blazon on that monster, and we would either get the blazon back when somebody buys that monster, or if it stays there until the end of the game, then we would get all the monsters our blazons are on. So those would be additional points. Okay. So that way around, we play that, and we play it until the draw pile is empty. If the draw pile is empty, each player is allowed to play 1 more round until everyone had the same amount of turns. And then you start counting your points. So for the monsters you've bought, there is like the bigger bubble at the bottom of the monster that shows your the points you get. And for the monsters or the cages that you bought or got throughout the game, there is a smaller bubble underneath it that shows a little less amount of points on the monster side, but still those are points that are added to your total points in the end. So
Okay.
obviously, the one with the most points wins.
Okay. So when you do the setup, you have some starting monsters, and then there are some monsters put out at random. So do
Yes.
they escalate, or is the deck randomized and you just have whatever comes up?
The deck is just whatever comes up. Obviously, you have your start monsters. Those are the ones that have lower numbers so that it's more easy to buy them because you only have a small amount of dice in the beginning. But going through the game, the numbers will get larger, but it could be like a large number coming up right in the beginning after one of the starter monsters are gone, but it can also take a while.
Okay. All right. So what? I don't know if we look maybe at some of the other powers on the monsters that are available, and there's also another card there, a trader, I believe.
The trader icon, right? So this stays there, no matter, even if you buy it, it stays in the wilderness display, and it costs 40 points that you have to roll with your dice, and you get 6 cages from the top draw pile if you buy that card.
Okay. Okay.
And for example, like I said before, if you roll your dice, if you were in phase 2 of the game, and I said earlier that we are allowed to take numbers aside. So if we rolled a 5 and we put it aside, we are not allowed to take another 5 out again. So once we took a number out and we rolled the dice, and for example, there would be only 5s left there, it would be a miss roll. So usually we would have to take the largest number of dice away again that we already put aside, and we're not allowed to roll that dice again. So if we have, for example, like we had earlier, the yellow 10, we would have to take that away. But some monsters allow you to have one of those misroll dice, and you're allowed to just roll the dice again.
Okay. So there's some risk to grabbing the color die early just because that's the thing most at risk.
Yes.
Okay.
Or you also have to check if you really want to roll that last dice, if you have a couple of numbers already out, if you want to take the risk of having the same number again. And the card that we see now, for example, is it has 2 options on it. So first, the option at the bottom that I already explained, that you get an additional dice once you have all 3 faces. And another one, this little symbol at the top, the white one, says that this is an option that happens right away, and it only happens once, only when you buy the card. And this means that you can get a cage from your opponents if they have one.
Right.
So you can just grab one of your opponent's cages and put it on your own cage pile.
Okay. The art nicely reinforces that. The monster's actually bringing you cages. So
I think it really is another beautiful work of art with all the different monsters and the different lands again.
Okay. And so you mentioned you play through the entire deck. Do you make any adjustments based on the player count?
Yes. The less players, the less cards come into the draw pile.
Okay. And then you also you have that trader card where you can get 6 at once. And it's interesting because you're gaining points, but that's also just really accelerating the game. You're not just taking one card. It's just a whole bunch all at one go.
It is.
So.
It is.
Okay.
So what I like about the game is obviously there is a lot of luck with it because you have to roll the dice, but you can also be very strategic with what monsters do we buy and what is my next turn. So it is a very nice combination of both.
Okay. And there is a solo mode as well, I believe.
It is. There are different phases in the solo mode that you can play through, and it's just great fun to play it on your own as well. So you have different things you have to achieve. So everything is explained in the rule book. And this is great fun if you're on your own and just want to have some game play in the evening.
Okay. All right. That sounds great. It seems very different for an Alexander Pfister design, because often it's just like, Maracaibo is like this huge game coming down, and that seemed like an odd combination from Amigo. So this seems like a nicely blending sort of the Amigo style with what he does as well. So yes.
Definitely. And we think that, well, obviously it is something different from what Amigo does, but we just think it's a great game. And also you see the box is built as another like a little roll table, so you can roll your dice in and they don't fall around on your table.
All right. Well, super. Anything else to say about Monster Expedition, or we've covered all of it?
I think we've covered all of it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jennifer, for joining us. It was great to have a look at Monster Expedition, out now in Germany. Do you know, will this also be coming out in English through the US Amigo branch?
I don't know, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, no, I know that it's sort of like completely different entities, kind of, where there's the German branch and the US can, use titles, take titles, and publish them, but they sort of operate independently. So it's interesting to see.
But the good thing about Monster Expedition is that you don't have like too much text on it. So most of it you can play if you know German or not. So, and most of the times we get the English rules up on the website quite quickly.
Yes, English rules are on BoardGameGeek. So if you're interested, you can get those English rules now, or German rules, of course, if that's better for you. And Jennifer, thank you very, very much for showing us the game.